Chapter 8, Our Mission to the Philippines. In this section I tell about our mission to the Philippines, which was in two stages. The first mission was in 2001 and then our second mission in October 2002. Now our first mission was born out of the fact that I'd published my book Converted on LSD Trip, and Gordon from Aylesbury got news of this and contacted me via the internet. And we decided there and then on the telephone that we would go out and bring relief to my brother that was in prison. And it ended up with Gordon and I going for a 5-week tour of the Philippines, preaching not only in Bilibid Prison but in other jails and in churches in August 2001. Now, Michael was working in the prison with a religious volunteer, Lucas P. Dangatton, another former inmate, and also with other religious volunteers, and I went with Gordon Smith. And we were invited by Reverend Joseph Kim, a Korean Presbyterian Calvinistic missionary, to go, and he invited us to go to various churches and in the jails, so we went. Let's talk about New Bilibid Prison, just to give you some information about it. New Bilibid Prison is one of the largest prisons in Asia's Far East. It consists of 3 compounds: the maximum, the medium and the minimum compound, and also penal farms. Now the maximum, there are over 23,500 inmates in this prison. The Bureau of Corrections looks after them. In the maximum compound, it houses over 13,000 inmates in an area of 12 hectares. And in that compound there is in fact death row, whereby there are 1,200 men waiting to be executed by lethal injection. And it's in the maximum compound that Michael was. Now, Gordon and I, when we got there, were amazed at the apparent religious work that was doing, Christian work in the jail, and we were encouraged. And Michael and I, when we were there, preaching to a vast number of men, we invited over 100 men to give their testimonies, to write them down, and we would put them in a book and publish it, and we'd call it Trojan Warriors. So the next year, this is what Michael did, and Reverend P. Dangatton, they collected and collated these testimonies. And it was also our vision, Michael and I's vision, to encourage Lucas P. Dangatton and to form, it was Lucas Dangatton's idea, to form a teacher training college, so that we would train these converted men in the doctrine of grace and prepare them to go back to their own cities and towns to share and preach the gospel with their families and friends. Now, it was after that visit that I received over 66 testimonies from these men, 22 of which were men on death row, and I published them in our book. Here it is, Trojan Warriors. Very, very good to read, to learn and see what God is doing in men's lives. Trojan Warriors. And that was our book that we wrote regarding our mission to the Philippines. And we took this book with us and distributed this book to each of those men that had in fact given their testimonies, so they could take the book on their release and show to their friends at home. Bear in mind, some of these guys have been in prison over 10 years, 15 years. William Pollock, who we had helped and supported, he'd gone back and left the prison. In August 2002, he'd gone back to Baguio City. He was the first of what we call the Trojan Warriors. He preached in Baguio City Jail and in Benguet City Jail, and he formed and gathered a church together and formed a church. And then he arranged for us, when we went on our second mission, to go and preach and teach in those jails when we got there. Now, in preparation for the second mission, it wasn't without its difficulties. My wife was opposed to the work we were doing. She had the opinion that it's surprising how men that are in a dire straits, when they're in trouble, they turn to God and make out that is their quest. Well, in order to convince her that these testimonies of men are real, I showed her one of the testimonies, and it's testimony number 30, Hector Marquida. Now if you read that, and if you're not taken back with awe at the good work that God has done in that man's life, then you can't be impressed at all. Well, all my wife could do was rip that up and throw it on the ground. She wanted nothing to do with it. In fact, one of our team members wanted to remove from this man's testimony his reference to his Calvinistic beliefs, simply because he didn't agree with it. Nevertheless, needless to say, that reference was left in. Right, in October 2002, I took with me, or Gordon came with me, Alistair came, Dr. Richard Kent came, Andy MacDonald, Catherine Farr, we had a team of 5 or 6, we went on our second mission to the Philippines to distribute the books and to celebrate the good work that God was doing. Now, one sad thing that occurred when I got there, within 2 weeks of me arriving and setting foot on the soil of the Philippines to do work, Alistair had to go back to England and he answered my post, and he sent word to me to say that my wife was suing me for divorce. That was a blow. I couldn't quite understand it, but I wasn't going to let the work that we were doing come to a halt. And I felt it was Satan having a go, trying to put a stop to the good work that we were doing. Wasn't to be deterred, and shortly after that, our team went down to Baguio City, and we preached in the jail, in Baguio City Jail, and in Benguet City Jail, and in early 2000, in January 2000, in fact in December 2002, I was about to baptise over 20 inmates in Baguio City Jail and 8 souls in Benguet, the provincial jail, which is the terrorist jail where the terrorists are that cause terror throughout Asia. And that's our answer to the gospel. You know, this is our answer to 7/11, you know, 9/11, whatever it is, the gospel of Christ to convert men. So we was encouraged by that, and another encouragement I got from one guy that was in the prison, he read the words and sang the song that I'd written and sent out to the guys in the Philippines in the prison to sing, and it was called The Spirit of the Lord Come Down, and he was overtaken with the words, and it caused him to rethink his life, and it brought him to repentance and turning back to God. And he's written his testimony. It's testimony number 13, Carlito M. Andrera. Read it and it tells you about the story, the song. The thing is, that song that I'd written it whilst I was at Warsas Church, celebrating my return to God, celebrating the fact that I'd fallen away and come back to God. And when my wife heard that song, she said she was jealous. And the reason was because it wasn't about her. So I rewrote the song, and it's rewritten, and now the song has words called Can You Remember? And I don't let my family forget this, you know, because I sing it all the time. Even my daughter sings it too. But however, our plans for Baguio City. You'll see it on the video. Go to the video library and see it. William Pollock, Baguio City. We're to build a multifunction room for the church, which William has formed and fashioned, and to encourage the work and to continue the work that God is doing in Baguio City through the preaching of the gospel. Now, it's naive to think that we had plain sailing in the prison. We had severe difficulties that occurred in the prison, which I will relate to you in a moment. But it was my brother's and I's mistaken belief, if you like, or naive belief, that we would encourage everybody, people would be willing to go and work with us to do these things. Not so, because things happened, and I will share that with you in a moment.
Spirit of the Lord, come down, anoint me to